Welcome to Slash Forward. Insidious is arguably among the top tier of supernatural horror films that have come out in the last 10 to 15 years. The plot centers around a possession, but it doesn't unfold in the way you would think. As the story progresses, it serves up some of the best scenes of supernatural escalation ever, the result of using a unique plot device that layers the narrative and creates tension and a fairly unsettling atmosphere that it maintains throughout. And it starts as we open on indications of a haunted house, as we pan around and zoom in on this crusty old bitch. Then in some other place and/or time, we find Renee getting a fresh start and attempting to navigate the creaky old house without disturbing anyone so she can have a little quiet time unpacking and organizing their belongings. First up after her is Dalton, who comes to voice his dissatisfaction with his new room. She tries to take his mind off things with some photos of her from back when she wasn't so old. But the baby wakes up, and soon the house is bustling with activity. The routine is somewhat disjointed as they try to find the proper kitchenware to meet their various desires. Renee, searching for plates, instead finds her carefully placed books strewn about the floor with no one taking credit. Once the kids are away, she has little time to relax and practice for her dream job as a saloon pianist. She is interrupted by normal baby stuff, and after getting her calmed, is drawn toward the attic by a strange noise. After a brief investigation, she chalks it up to the normal functioning of an old furnace. Later that night, Daddy arrives home to reap the rewards of fatherhood without putting in any of the work. While everyone is distracted downstairs by all the belongings they are unable to locate, a self-opening door upstairs attracts Dalton's attention. He ventures up toward the attic with an explorer's curiosity. Of course, we don't need to keep it entirely primitive, so he attempts to hit the light. He can't quite reach, so he keeps going up until he hits the broken rung from earlier and falls back. Now, he might be minorly concussed, but it really seems like he's not alone. Josh and Renee respond quickly to his screams and find him with only minor scrapes and bruises. Kids bounce back quickly, so you probably don't need to monitor him while he sleeps, you know? This whole day has put Renee in a sour mood with its foreboding negativity. She was really hoping to get a fresh start here at the new house and finally be free of the burden of minor, random inconveniences. After another hectic morning, Josh goes to wake up Dalton and finds that his son is playing a little bit of a prank on him, making him think that he might wake up when he's actually fallen into a deep coma. They learn that his coma is inexplicable because there's no apparent trauma to the brain. As far as they can tell, he's just doing this to be difficult. But they'll do some more tests and keep him here just long enough for them to go bankrupt. That takes about 3 months, at which point he is evicted and sent home, where Renee gets some basic training before having the responsibility of 24-hour care hoisted upon her. Despite this new wellspring of sadness, there's no new inspiration for music. She's distracted again by the baby monitor, but this time it's a strange, raspy whispering that she can't quite make out. It gets louder and eventually comes into focus as someone wanting something.
I want it. Now!
And is accompanied by the sounds of a distressed baby, but she doesn't find anything. When cleaning up later, Renee sees that Foster won an award at school, but he's keeping things close to the chest, so he doesn't create any burden by further splitting their attention. But if she's wanting to reward him, he sure would like to change rooms. He finds it very disturbing when Dalton goes walking around at night. That is so stupid, she thinks of him. But then we cut to nighttime, and no sooner does his door close than the floorboards start creaking. In the adult room, Renee mentions the strange monitor noise from earlier, which Josh attributes to interference. Speaking of strange noises though, there is an odd knocking at a door somewhere. It doesn't seem to be coming from the front door, best he can tell. When Renee goes to check on the baby, there is the appearance of a man in the room. And with that distraction, the alarm begins to go off and the front door is now found to be wide open. The family groups up and huddles in Dalton's room while Josh gets himself psyched up to fire poke a bitch, if necessary. However, as he turns on the lights and clears the house, it appears the potential threat has abated. The next day, we see Josh at work making up excuses for staying late because that's his coping mechanism for stressful situations. Meanwhile, Dalton is still not responding to tests, and it's starting to feel like the doctors have given up since they don't have any answers. When Renee goes to change his bedsheets, she finds that something's been getting at him. or someone. Josh wakes up to a series of distressing voicemails and rolls into the driveway, recognizing that he's in the doghouse. They have a conversation about his general absence from their lives, not just in terms of being away from the house, but also in terms of being unengaged when home. She's nearly certain that something is seriously wrong with the house. When he fails to support her, she mic drops her ace card in his lap and walks away. Naturally, he's sleeping on the couch. So when a strange presence begins to press into Dalton's window, Renee awakes with the start completely alone. Or not alone, I suppose, as a strange man is outside pacing, and inside menacing, as one does. Her screams get Josh scrambling, but he's ultimately confounded about what to do here. Per her request, they go ahead and leave. But they leave, packing up their whole ass house and hitting the dusty trail. They want to try to put this behind them and get some relief by living closer to family. With the help of her mother-in-law Lorraine, they are soon settled in. Renee's getting to be an old pro at all this, but when straightening up, her concerto is swapped out for some Tiny Tim, and she's horrified to discover this new neighborhood is infested with newsies. The little tricky bastard looking to steal some nickels, no doubt. She silently pursues him through the house, never addressing him directly, and eventually corners him in a wardrobe. Despite his light and jovial spirit, she is deeply unsettled, and Josh is deeply unsettled to come home and find a surprise priest visiting.
It's first line of a joke, right?
Renee sought a consultation so she'd have the right terms to explain what's going on here. It seems the apparition followed them to their new home. His mommy's here because she had a foreboding dream about this house, which is why she knows Renee is telling the truth. Dalton is in danger from some sort of dark entity with a red face, like that one there. Then sounds of destruction lead them up to Dalton's room, where he's okay, but on the floor. Thankfully, Lorraine knows a lady from her bridge club who can help, and they're obviously all on board with that now. Specs and Tucker show up for some preliminary investigation. Just a couple of bros who like looking for ghosts and want to verify they're legit before Elise even wastes her time coming out. Tucker searches around with his bespoke spirit detecting equipment and is incredibly surprised to discover that it actually works. That's never happened before. So for sure, this is a situation that warrants calling Elise. She's the big dog in charge who is a conduit to the spirit realm and is just a damn joy to be around. Unlike the boys, she doesn't need any fancy shit to see what's hidden so long as she has her peepers. The process here is that she dictates her visions and Specs draws them out, with as much artistic liberty as he'd like. When they get to Dalton's room, there's a clear looming presence that she describes as quickly as she can envisage. Specs works with a very forgiving medium and is able to scribble out a fairly stylized version of the cloven-hooved bastard haunting them. For analysis, Dalton's spirit is all wrapped up with this thing, which is why medical science can't touch it. It's also why it followed them here.
It's not the house that's haunted.
Unbeknownst to him, Dalton is an accomplished astral projectionist. He usually does it in his sleep and interprets it as a dream, but he's actually going into the further, a timeless dark realm meant for the tortured souls of the dead. He got lost, leaving behind an empty shell that's attracted the attention of some greedy little entities who are hoping to hop in there and take it for a joyride. His primary demon is hoping to cause some pain and is just waiting for him to get weak enough to take over. Now this is a bridge too far for Josh, the strict rationalist. He was basically just humoring his wife, but now they're talking about furthers and likely looking to charge some money. I mean, does she expect him to believe her or something? And so with that, he apologizes for wasting their time. But later he goes up to Dalton's room, which was previously destroyed with no corporeal explanation, to ask Dalton if he actually did go somewhere, as if he expects him to respond. And when he takes a moment to soak in the ambiance, he comes to realize the signs had been there the entire time. The demon, the astral projection, whatever this is. Now he's come to terms with the situation and is ready to proceed. They set up immediately since you can't be too prompt when souls are on the line. Things may get a little surreal, but she recommends they just take it easy and go along for the ride. Specs can help guide them through like an acid trip. The next steps at this point are pretty obvious, so I won't recount them here. As she calls out to connect with the spirit realm, the various sensory and capture devices begin popping off to indicate supernatural activity of a high order. She connects with Dalton and encourages him to come find them, but he's hiding, and moving puts him at great risk of being found by that red-faced freako that's digging on his body. As Specs continues to scribble down everything that comes out of Elise's mouth tube, the message begins to become repetitive before hitting a crescendo and fizzling out. But hey, Dalton's awake. Oh, he's here to kick ass and summon the Masters of the Night, who desire to enter our world and get a tasty little lickety-lick of the living. Elise successfully puts him back into a coma to calm things back down, It's hard to believe, but after all that, all they got was a single frame. But it's a compelling frame. Then Lorraine shows up and commences with the exposition. You see, she knows Elise from way back because she called on her for help with old Joshy boy. Dalton, it turns out, comes by his abilities through birthright. When Josh was younger, he had a nocturnal visitor who was into photobombing back when you wouldn't even know until after your film was developed, which is truly evil. She kept inching closer and closer, and they kept her away by suppressing his memories of astral projection. But despite a lifetime of suppression, now, when the stakes are the absolute highest, he must project himself into the further and bring back his son. Best practices say to play it cool, so the others don't know he's a flesh boy who's left behind a vessel. Then she fully hypnotizes his whole ass into infinity, and it happens just like that. He glides on out and finds himself engulfed in darkness, but his boyhood persona guides him to his destination. He's soon walking among the specters, and despite needing to keep a low pro, he insists on talking to everyone he finds to ask for help and directions. He demands answers, as if the undead don't already have enough to do with reenacting their deaths and haunting and whatnot. He eventually finds the red door and comes across zombie Gene Simmons again. Once he pushes him away with his mind powers, he's free to roam as he pleases. He follows the pictures until he finally finds Dalton, and through the power of positive thinking, breaks his bonds. But that little lizardy goat boy sees them, and they engage in a battle for spiritual supremacy. Josh allows himself to get beat up just enough to escape, and then he and Dalton race to find their connection to physical reality. This ends up kinda like being in a haunted house, but with dire consequences. Renee calls out to help lead him home, and when he begins to follow her voice, the tremors stop. But it is eerily quiet. The boys are sent out to investigate and find that the junk drawer contains a hand, and the closet is pregnant with ghosts thirsting for those two juicy empty vessels Renee was shouting about. Josh accepts a side quest to confront his boyhood demon, leaving Dalton to confront his own demon like a man. Through finding his courage and the urgent pleadings of his wife, he repels the old hag and phases back into his tissue-laden body, now leaving Dalton completely alone. But despite the formidability of his demon friend, he also manages to phase up, leaving all them ghosts to go suck an egg or two. The family then shares a heartwarming reunion, except for Foster and the baby. They have been missing for quite some time now. Everyone breathes a little sigh of relief, but it is short-lived for Elise. She has a medium's intuition that something is up with Josh, so she snaps a candid to see what she can see. Sure enough, he gets rather upset about it, to the point of choking her out. Renee just barely hears sounds of the struggle over other noises and rushes off to find her. Too late. She is fully dead. Through flashback, we see Renee discover, as Elise did, that Josh was unable to overpower a sickly old woman, and then someone gets Renee's attention. I'm guessing that was Foster. It's a bit presumptuous to make a movie that rolls right into a sequel, but it's pretty good job security. And also, James Wan has a fairly short directorial list primarily comprised of bangers, so that's a pretty sure bet. If you have a taste for more of that sweet, sweet Wan, check out this video. Now that we're here, I want to congratulate you for making it to the end of the video, and affirm that you are a very special person because of it. And if you enjoyed the video, I would love for you to become a part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.